Welcome to Habitual Excellence, presented by Value Capture. This podcast and our firm is all about helping you and your organization achieve habitual excellence via one unifying focus, one value-based structure, and one performance system. In other words, it's about helping you capture dramatically more value through achieving perfect care and perfect safety for patients and staff. To learn more about Value Capture and our services, visit www.valuecapturellc.com.
Welcome, listeners. I'm Ken Siegel. I'm the CEO of Value Capture, and I'm excited, as I always am, to introduce another episode of Habitual Excellence, where we have the privilege of talking to health system leaders who really inspire me and teach me, and I know all of the community out there, by taking on the massive challenges of today from a perspective of principle, of systems thinking, of the habitual excellence principles, to make not just to succeed in overcoming challenges, but also, make great things happen. And today, I am excited because we get to talk about an issue that is on every health system's mind. How do we grow successfully, and how do we grow in a way that helps us be more of who we want to be, not less? And to do that, we have an amazing guest. He is Simon Curtis. Simon is the Chief Operating Officer for the Duke Health Integrated Practice at Duke Health. And he will tell you more about what that is. But, he is leading more than 2,200 physicians, over 600 APPs, and I believe had 2.5 million visits last year across the multi-specialty practice, and has been, as part of, he will be the first to credit the other leaders and team members involved, but has been key to a challenging and exciting course that he's going to teach us about. So, Simon, welcome.
Thank you, Ken. I'm excited to be here and to talk more about all these great topics.
All right, great. So again, the theme will resonate with everybody out there. Everybody's trying to grow. It's a key to everybody's business model. They're trying to grow through ambulatory. The physician practices are key to all of this. But you at Duke, listeners, may not know, you confronted a sort of two challenges: the need to grow, the need to meet access, but also the job of integrating a faculty practice. So will you talk a little bit about what you were facing in 2022?
Yeah, absolutely. So, backing up a little bit, I've been at Duke for going on 15 years now, in the hospital, the main Duke hospital, and in the physician group, which was previously a standalone for-profit physician organization that was connected to the health system in a variety of ways. But through contracts, medical directorships, and those kind of things, but was not an integrated practice in the sense that everyone would know. And in 2022, post-COVID, the faculty voted at the time, the physicians who were members of the PDC voted to integrate into the health system. And the reasons for that were complicated and many, but a big part of the reason for making the change in the eyes of the faculty was to enable and to prepare us for being able to become a true system and to deliver on the promises of systemness. That is not to say that there wasn't fear and anxiety and all of those emotions as part of the transition.
It was not an easy process. And
it is not an easy process.
As you said, it occurred later for Duke than most other places, but everybody will be resonating, I think, with some of those dynamics. Yeah.
Right on. And so the dynamics have changed and the familiar sort of emotion around it. And then on top of that, we were facing in our sort of traditional care models, the most challenging access situation that we have had. Our demand was up 10 to 15% year over year over year post-COVID. And we were just struggling being to keep up and not have our clinicians, our team members, our clinics feel overwhelmed. The feeling of I work as hard as I can, as many hours as I can, and I don't seem to be able to ever get ahead. So trying to balance the individual in a system that just isn't meeting the needs of the patient, with the change to get into a new structure, a new system that would better enable us to meet the needs of our patient, was a challenge that I will say, are probably hopefully in the middle of. We may actually be closer to 30 to 40% through, but we're beginning to see that the directionally that we're making the kind of progress we were hoping we were going to make in terms of growing to meet the needs of our communities, and being able to right size the capacity to meet the demand of patients that are coming through, and doing it in a thoughtful way so that individual clinicians don't have to continue just working harder, working harder, working harder. It's how do we rethink some of the systems so that we as a integrated practice are doing what we need to do for our patients.
Yeah, so Simon, talk a little bit more about that, right? Because you've kind of pulled it off and you have momentum, but how, right? So you had these two challenges. You had to do all the integration stuff. You had to do comp, new comp models. You had to do systems integration and all that stuff. And you had this increased patient need to meet, which is a good thing. How did you make these two challenges sort of reinforcing positives? Like, how did you use purpose? How did you use key goals? How, talk a little bit about through the leadership framework that you ended up using to take a situation that could be extra challenging and came up with alignment.
Yeah, well, I think, Duke, we always strive for excellence, and the purpose of delivering our care and the quality of care that is available here to more people and more communities across the state. That purpose resonates. I will say, though, in the midst of the change and the integration and all of the stress and the pressure around access and getting patients in, it's hard, or it's easy, to lose that purpose. So this is something that has been a challenge, a continuous challenge, to come back to purpose and come back to the why, taking time for the that to be discussed, debated, understood, validated, all those sort of things. So I would say that's a big part of it. And I think as we've gotten into the integrated practice model, we've been able to accomplish some of the promises of the integration, which, it's how do we have a purpose and how do we have a vision, but it's also getting some of those key wins so that people can lean in and feel like, hey, everything is not perfect. And I'll be the first to tell you there is a lot of work for us to do on the practice side, system side. But we've made a lot of progress and we've accomplished a lot in a 18-month period. And so I think having the purpose and then a vision to where we need to go, knowing things felt every day aren't perfect, but as we've been able to achieve some of the key milestones around, some of the foundational things you mentioned, comp plans and other things, but bigger strategic things around negotiations with partners and being able to find new and innovative and different ways to extend the great care we deliver to more communities. I think it's beginning to feel like we're slowly delivering on some of what people hoped the practice could deliver on.
And you've also talked about how a lot of that purpose was like literally rooted in access in very concrete ways for patients, right? So maybe name a key metric that you were able to return to and, and have people's minds on, because, it's great to talk about the philosophy and everything, but it's got to be measurable. You're a very measure driven leader and helping people. So, just be a little concrete for the listeners about what were some of your, true north goals there as you got into this.
Absolutely. Well, for us, it really, I think it started going years back. Our CEO, Craig Albanese, has been resolute around people, access, and growth, right? Those are things that are going to be critical to our operational success, and always assuming quality, safety and quality, but quality.
Yeah.
Which is, in today's world, the trust and quality is not something to jump past, but has been sort of core for Duke. And in people, of course, we talked about being able to meet people where they are, respond to people's emotions, support people through these changes, recruit and retain the right clinicians and physicians, physician scientists. And then for access, that really has been, I think, the galvanizing force in a lot of our discussions the last year and a half. Everyone believes that Duke Care is excellent and that we can transform patients' lives and deliver exceptional care when they're in our clinics and in our hospitals and being seen by our care teams. And that's inspiring. We measure that in a variety of ways. And we, as you said, are reviewing this all the time, and definitely as part of our KPIs reported to our board, our health system, our clinical leaders, our chairs in the practice. So things like lead time, median days for a new patient to access our care, days that they're available is a familiar one, available hours in a clinic. So more of a process metric. So going upstream, are we actually increasing the hours available for patients to be seen? And then on the demand side, we're looking at referrals and phone calls and all those sort of things that help us understand where the demand might be. But yeah, so I think that view of access has helped people say, how are we doing? How are we progressing? And where do we need to be pushing harder potentially?
And describe, again, trying to make it as concrete as we can for our listeners, describe some of the progress you've made on that, first appointment to be seen, say for cancer patients and others, because you described it in a very concrete way.
Yeah. So I think there's two parts of that. One is that our median lead time for the practice has begun to decrease, which it was only going up coming into 22, 23.
So you reversed it.
So begun to decrease. We're down probably 15%, so we're getting down to like the teens for the whole practice. That's everything from primary care to neurosurgery and everything in between. We also have areas like cancer and heart and many others that, based on the type of patient who is seeking Duke for their care, a lot of times they're life-changing, altering kind of diagnoses, and we have created programs and processes that would enable patients to be seen today or tomorrow if that's what they feel they want. We also will offer, depending on what kind of record collection and other logistics need to happen, an appointment, 3 days, 4 days out, where all of the pre-work could be completed. So responding sort of in the immediate emotional moment, as well as responding to the true clinical care need and making sure there's a clear step and path for people to get that kind of care. So effectively, we've gone from kind of measuring access to now having these real tangible programs to get patients in immediately for the kind of care when they think that's what's needed.
And you've used the teams to rethink the process so that that's possible, right? With the focus on quality, safety, and meeting the patient need. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think, like you said, going back to the principles, we've had a vision and a goal. This is built on years of work around access. So this is sort of getting to the tip of the iceberg now around access. and it's all been driven by we know where we need to go, but real learned humility around how we're going to get there.
Yeah.
It is very different by group, by specialty, by patient segment, by name the difference, and allowing and enabling and
Yeah.
empowering the teams, meaning our incredibly talented clinical chiefs and chairs uh, and clinical leaders to design the right approach, and test and iterate and adjust, is literally the only way we would have accomplished that outcome.
And for those that have got to see how Simon leads and never puts himself in the forefront, not surprised that, you, like all habitual excellence leaders, sort of said that's the only way we're going to be able to do this, right? Too many smart people with too many things to do, and everybody's got to be part of it, right?
Absolutely. A lot of assumptions between what we think the problem is and what's actually happening in practice with a individual
Yeah.
patient who needs our care.
So let me pick up on that. And again, your fellow leaders are, facing similar challenges and similar settings in many cases. And um, so you described in a way that all of this work going on in the, newly integrated practice has actually really caused a new level of integration between ambulatory and inpatient around the touches and the function of these systems. And of course, that's on everybody's minds too. So can you talk a little bit about that mutually positive journey? And I'm sure not always easy, but that interface is a key one for our listeners.
Absolutely. So I think the integration of the practice, which was a large practice, like you said, 2,000 plus physicians, hundreds of advanced practice providers, 120 ambulatory clinic locations into the system. It was change for us, and it was change for the system. How does a physician group work? How does a practice work? And I think that, uncertainty or the questioning of how we've worked in the past has created tremendous opportunity for us as an organization to better work together. Some examples are, as we're planning services, instead of thinking department to department or practice to hospital, it's really how do we build programs around patients and patient, segments, to use a sort of marketing term, but different patient segments or patient populations across the system. So what do we need from these three departments and this hospital and this clinic location, and maybe another partner outside of Duke, right? A vendor, a supplier, so that when a patient is accessing us for something like, breast cancer, or for a knee replacement, or for that, the system holistically supports that patient, and that we're optimizing to the continuum versus optimizing to the to the individual situation or where the patient is.
Yeah.
We're on that journey. So let me be clear, that's something we are working hard to achieve, but are again seeing early promise that will be possible in our growth and operations.
Yeah. So, which is exciting, right? And, um, it's always about the future, and what you're doing now is creating the potential for an even better future for more people to be cared for by Duke, and it's also creating a better future for the clinicians and people who work at Duke, right? So let's talk a little bit, you're results oriented with a commitment to the right processes to get there, just like most listeners of the podcast. Let's talk about results. What results are you seeing for patients where you anchored it, for clinicians at Duke, for you guys at leaders, what's speaking to people about what we're seeing, and, give some examples.
Yeah. So we've been able to achieve, as I mentioned, access is beginning to improve, right? So if you say, what do we feel like we need to do? It's to make sure patients can get into the exceptional care that we deliver. So access is improving. We have onboarded or started around 650 new clinicians in the last 18 months. So just tremendous growth. that required us to really rethink how do we onboard people and how do we support them getting started up. And again, it has not been easy, but it's been a learning opportunity for us as a system.
This is a critical, you want to grow successfully. What are the core systems allowed to do it? Recruiting, onboarding, et cetera. Are you performing as close to what we call the theoretical limit as you can, right? That's where it comes from.
We are pushing that theory, we are pushing
Yeah,
that limit,
yeah,
theoretical and
it's great.
real, for
Yeah.
sure. And then I think on the patient side, we actually were in the middle of, prior to integration and coming through integration, implementing a new patient experience platform where we can measure patients' feedback in more real time, direct to the point of care, really specific to the individual, whether it was a call center interaction, a triage, or in the clinic. And we're performing at getting close to the top decile in terms of net promoter score for patients. So we have a better way to manage. Our data is much more representative in terms of age, race, demographics, everything. So better real view of our patients' experience with us. And we're seeing improvements on the experience that they have. And so I think, and we are growing. So, again, 10, 15% year over year growth in terms of patients that we're able to care for. And in the middle of, again, building the practice and making sure that the fundamentals really work. And, you talk about a purpose for patients. I think as a practice, I would say for me and the other leaders in the practice are in our chairs, our role is really to meet the expectations and what we see as the type of work environment and the type of practice that our clinicians deserve. And again, go back to the reason Duke is because of the incredible physicians and APPs who work here and staff who are taking care of patients every single day. And so for me, that's the purpose of the practice, is how at any point from recruitment to practice to helping somebody retire at the end of their career in the right way and hand their practice off, how do we make sure that they have what they need to do their job and to deliver for the patients who are seeking them out as, sometimes the only person in the world who the patient has hoped may be able to help them. And so as a practice, my purpose every day is to get up and make sure that we are working really hard to improve our fundamentals so that those incredible team members can continue to do the excellent work that they do, not in spite of the big systems and a big bureaucracy, and deliver all those things, the growth, the access, the patient experience in the way that, frankly, we take for granted sometimes at a place like Duke.
Well, and you've laid so many key foundation stones together, and you do it so easily and subtly. And I just want to underline, you talked about getting these pieces aligned, right? And how you're seeing that change in the people you lead from that purpose-driven leadership as they pull together. And you're getting results that if people missed it, 10 to 15% growth in revenue, et cetera, and gains in your people metrics as well, at a time when everybody really needs that for their business models to succeed, et cetera. So it's always gratifying for us where we see the sort of flywheel moving positively and the win-win-win sort of nature of this once you get it going, but it's not easy, right? So
Absolutely. And you mentioned the flywheel. I mean, that's what I think we are hoping and feel like the practice is headed towards as we're maturing, where it can be the flywheel for Duke Health to perpetuate success if we do it the right way.
yeah, well, that's great. And you also alluded to the sort of the C-suite leadership, Craig, who's a very systems-driven leader, et cetera, and the simplicity of that framework, supporting it and building on years of work to be systemic, but taking this opportunity to really get it done, which is great. Simon, can you, again, for fellow leaders, share when you look back at the last 24 months and all that you've got going, there are always some key moments, right? There's a constancy of purpose and a clarity of what the change has to be based on, et cetera, that you've got to hold to. But then there are key moments of, because you are making a shift, right? You're sort of moving more into what you want to be. You're building, but you're making a shift further at a time. What were some of those moments where you and the physician leadership and, Duke leadership, where it started to feel more real to people?
That's a great question. I mean, I think there are so many, it's hard to pick the right one to share in an integration that's this complicated and matrixed. It feels like every day that we uncover or understand things in a new way. How are things working and how are we prioritizing work? Um, I think there is a tendency in a lot of healthcare and academic places to focus on the bad, the things that aren't working and the things that are still a challenge. And we spend almost all of our time talking about that. So, your question challenges me to a little bit to think about what's gone well and what have we learned. And, I honestly think there's a few big things. So the access that we talked about, right? As the numbers started to sort of, materialize on the KPIs that turnover was as low as it's ever been. We started more physicians and APPs than we ever have. We were successful in a few different partnerships that we were not able to put together because of the complexity of our organizations in the past. And you realize that all of those things are accomplished on the incredible work of incredible teams of people. My reflection is that the team and having the right team in place with the right purpose, who feel empowered and supported and are trusted, that there is no replacement for that. You can't shortcut it. You can't rush through it. You can't, there's no project management software or tool that is going to get you past that. It is all about the people approaching all those kind of issues and problems from the right perspective with the right purpose, to be able to get an outcome. And I know for me in my career, you wanna get results, you wanna close things out, you want to complete the to-do list, you want to, whatever, however you want to frame it, you want to achieve, you are striving. But unless you appreciate that you slow down a little, set things up the right way, and you can achieve beyond what anyone would have thought possible if you made somebody put some money on it for us a year and a half or 2 years ago. So that, I think that's my reflection, is it's the simplest, most sort of
Yeah.
easy answer, but it is true in a different kind of way now than it was for me before this.
Well, it's great. And again, to pull out a couple things that strike me as you speak, you talked about in healthcare and in health systems that care and all do, you spend a lot of time focusing on what goes wrong, and you should. And one of the things that we try to teach and share is the systems that achieve sustainable excellence and sustainable greatness. It's a pairing of the serious as a heart attack about the stuff that goes wrong, and we're going to learn from it, and it's not going to happen again because we're using the best methods to go at that, and we're transparent and all of that stuff. And also, it is pairing that with the human aspiration to do great things in very concrete ways. And I think sometimes, especially amidst pressured times, health systems focus on one or the other not as deeply as is possible. And we're there's a lot of good things always going on, and people are always pointing to the good things happening in their health systems, but really digging in about what's possible and what people are starting to achieve that's going beyond adds so much fuel, and so I love hearing you highlight that. Together with, you've shared so much about your lessons as a young leader, and it sounds like as Duke moving into this new era with relatively new leadership at the top with Craig, et cetera, and moving through challenging times, but in dynamic, exciting ways. And our listeners know that Duke has certain advantages, that you're building on, but I want to emphasize to people Duke has not sat on its laurels and made deeper commitments to pursuing habitual excellence and overcome significant challenges that are, all of our listeners face as well as in the process of overcoming it. So great to speak with you and to hear about that.
Absolutely. Thank you. I mean, we have a long way to go. So I think in talking with you and sharing some of this, I hope that it helps others place where they are in the journey. But I should be really clear that we have a long way to go, and that I have a long way to go in terms of continuing to learn, develop, practice the principles and the approach. But I'm working at it, and I think at the end of the day, appreciating that it's going to be a process and always is a process for applying the principles is a key part of this. But like I said, I'm hopeful that we're at that point at Duke that it is becoming a flywheel, and that it will self-reinforce, and that we will accomplish all and more than we've imagined by approaching things this way.
And it really will, at a time of abundance and remarkable, medical abilities and people, and it's really exciting. And I think, in terms of leadership and what it really takes, your combination of effectiveness but also humility is something that makes people want to serve and go with you, and and it's pretty common across Duke, actually. So terrific.
Absolutely.
For people who want to connect with Simon, he is and learn more, he has generously suggested connect with him via LinkedIn. You can find him out there as COO of the integrated practice at Duke, and it's Curtis with one S at the end. So don't mess up your searches ahead of time. But Simon, that's very generous of you. Your time is very precious. Simon and his colleagues across Duke, Duke Primary Care, others, publish a lot, talk a lot about habitual excellence in practice at various conferences in the quote unquote, operational excellence world, lean world, other things. And of course, quality of care, safety of care, and high performance. You can find Simon and his colleagues out there in different ways describing their work. And, from, academic papers to, sort of more live fire as we've done here today. So there are a lot of resources out there for people that want to dig deeper into the principles and understand across more than one health system what's going on. Our website at valuecapturellc.com is a great resource for that. And we invite you to connect with us. And of course, if you like the podcast, if you find it valuable, please like it and subscribe on your favorite platform. Simon, thanks for being with us today. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ken. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to Habitual Excellence, presented by Value Capture. We hope you'll subscribe to the podcast, and please also rate and review it in your favorite podcast directory or app. To learn more about Value Capture and how we can help your organization on this journey to habitual excellence, visit our website at www.valuecapturellc.com.